I think I better. Civil servants. Now, I imagine, Sam, you're going to have something to say about that. Look, they've been told, come into the office 2 days a week, that's all you've got to do, and they'd say no.
Well, why are we wasting time moaning about whether people are in the office or not in the office?
Because you're more productive in the office.
But are you?
Yes.
That is, there's not a lot of evidence for that. There's a huge amount of evidence that actually you're more productive working from home. As a barrister, I have argued a number of cases from home. I do my advice work from home, and I've never been more productive in my life. And huge numbers of people are like
exemplary.
That. Well, I don't think I am, and I think that it's more. We should be, rather than sort of this really performative thing of going into the office and showing up and presenteeism. What we should be focusing on is the civil service delivering on what it needs to deliver on, and we all agree that it's not. But that's nothing to do with whether they're working from home. It's to do with bad leadership.
Okay, before Dr. Renee comes in, because I can see her chewing her fingernails. Harrison, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I do agree in part. You know, some of the studies into the impact of working from home on productivity are very classic examples of spurious correlations, and I think you need to study this over time. And also, you certainly can't generalise to the extent where it's like every single person is less productive. There's going to be some tailoring involved in there. The civil service being bad is not a new issue. This was going on before COVID and has been, you know, going on since. So I think there's probably a little bit more to it than that.
But if we pay for them and we want them in the office, they should go to the office.
Well, who exactly wants them in the office?
The electorate. I do. I'm paying for them.
Speak on behalf of tens of millions of people in this country? I think what most people really want is good outcomes from the civil service. I don't think they care where that happens.
I agree, they do. But at the moment, they're not getting good outcomes. I mean, HMRC can't even keep itself open for a full year because it just can't cope with its workload. That's a great point.
Yes.
You know, I know of children's social workers working from home. In my opinion, as someone who cares desperately about child safeguarding, that is a child safeguarding disaster waiting to happen as people fall through gaps. Because when you sit around a table like this, and I'm sitting here talking about Mrs. Smith and her family, you might say to me suddenly, Sam, oh, I had something with that family and you need to know this. That doesn't happen when you're working in your living room on your own.
So it's a really interesting point, and we've discussed this a great deal. I can work from home some of the time, obviously not when I'm doing this, but actually being in the office, I do think you get camaraderie, you get time to talk and discuss, and actually we fire off ideas which you never can replicate on Zoom, for example.
Well, I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, I think. Yes, it's perfectly capable of firing off ideas via text or via WhatsApp or via group chat, and perfectly capable of having discussions on Zoom. We've ran an entire country on Zoom for 2 years.
Look what it did. Look what it did to the economy.
Well, but not because of Zoom, because it was really, really terribly managed, again, at the top.
That's not true. We've had babies die because social workers weren't going to the houses physically.
We've seen...
Well, okay, first, social workers work for local authorities, so we're talking about civil servants here, which is
I agree, but we're just
so that's a very
we're talking in generality about the merits of working from home.
Let's talk. So, in talking in a generality, the different professions work differently in different contexts. So coming forward with a big general, even if for a big general civil service thing, saying get them into the office on this one rule 2 days a week, is an absolutely ludicrous way of improving productivity. What you need to be able to do is give people the trust and autonomy and training to be able to understand how they work best and deliver on it. And you need to give them the leadership to provide that.
Can I just ask you, Harrison, is this a generational thing? Because maybe Renee and I are just really old. Is it a generational thing?
Well, I don't know. I think, you know, when it comes to civil servants, you are talking about a group of people that kind of disproportionately skews away from the old and away from the very young as well. It's kind of that middle group of people. So I'm not sure you can necessarily call it generational. I mean, I think when there's a danger of talking too broadly. So if you're talking about social workers, obviously the distinction that you just made, Sam, there between local and national civil service. If you're talking about social workers, that seems to me obviously a case where, you know, having people there in person.
Not happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right?
But that seems obviously a case where there ought to be, you know, a little bit more of a clampdown. But you know, that's not necessarily true for every single kind of role that you take up in the civil service. So I think we should be wary of talking too broadly about what this does.
I think this is quite reflective of what people are saying at home. Good morning, guys. Says Colin by WhatsApp. There's a simple way of getting the civil service back working is they have to reapply for their jobs. It's about time someone grows a backbone and stops pussyfooting around. We're a broken country and a laughingstock around the world. I mean, I do have to agree. I can't get through to anyone if I get put in another automated queuing system because someone's feeding their cat and sitting at home.
And your
I want them in the office.
call is very important.
Put in automated queuing systems because people are feeding their cat. You're getting put in automated queuing systems because companies have realised that it's much cheaper to not bother with any sort of customer service. That's nothing to do with workers. That's to do with bosses, and it's also to do with bosses in the civil service. The reason this country is a laughingstock is because of the people at the top. It's not the people that are trying to implement every latest ridiculous directive from the government. It's the people that are giving the directives.
There is obviously a demand from employees to work from home. That's something that employers are responding to.
Women who are now working at home whilst doing their childcare because it's cheaper. They don't have to employ. You cannot, and I'm a mother. You cannot work and do your childcare.
Yeah, I agree. So let's look at childcare. The government promised that we were going to everyone was going to have a huge extension of childcare, and they didn't think to actually provide the childcare places.
Well, to be fair to the government, of course that is changing. Let's just move on.
But it's not changing.
Well, no,
David, there's not enough places for them to actually deliver on the promise.
More government childcare subsidies is not going to solve the issue. It's actually massively contributed to the significant rise in childcare costs since the year 2000. I mean, it's gone up about 193%, whereas inflation's been about 80% since 2000, wages 86%, childcare 193%.
No, indeed.
There is this spiral of regulation and subsidies that needs to end. More government intervention is not going to solve the problem.
It's not government intervention that's causing that. It's the fact that
it's mandatory staff to child ratios, for example,
but
among the
also
strictest in Europe.
That the private sector has been able to run untrammeled profits off that. So
hang on a minute, substantiate that because most nurseries lose money.
And close.
You've seen unprecedented closures over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have over the last 20 years we've seen unprecedented closures because we've seen childcare budgets not keeping up with what is necessary.
That's just not true. Government spending on childcare has massively increased. They've been spending money to try and solve a problem of their own creation. Government regulations have created an artificial scarcity of childcare in the UK, and so the government spends money in order to stop that rather than actually solving the root cause of the problem. So you've got this spiral. You've got this spiral which just keeps increasing costs and chucking more money at the same amount of supply.
Government spending hasn't kept up with demand. We have a huge amount, like one of the largest sections in the country of people who are outside the workforce and not able to work are people with caring responsibilities. And because the market is incapable of properly compensating the caring work that mainly women do.
Hang on a minute. Wait. You're conflating. No, you are conflating two completely different things to make your point. So we were talking about childcare, and now suddenly we're talking about carers. They're very different.
Well, no, caring can also.
They're very different. They're very different.
It's part of the same problem, which is that we don't properly reward.
But to be fair to the government, and I will be fair to the government is trying to address that and is putting in more steps to help people with childcare.